So now we are at the stage that we can do game testing. But before we get to game testing, we need to understand what type of data we need to collect. So I picked this topic from Human Computer Interaction book, which goes very extensively into data collection. I just picked the areas that are important when it comes to game testing, what type of data we need to have, and some general overview of that. So, first of all, what is data collection? I will talk about it very extensively on the second part of this video, which I go into the data collection when it comes to games specifically. But in this short video, I want to talk about how to collect data, how we can have usability testing, how we can create questionnaires and surveys, and how to carry an observation that is successful. So, data collection happens when you gather and analyze valuable information that includes participant's name, email address, their feedback, or any type of automatic data that you're collecting. It doesn't have to include every single piece of data that we have here, but it could be just one of them or the combination of the two. And it comes from different sources that you can have. So there are five key components when it comes to data collections. You need to have a specific goal. If you don't have a goal for your data collection, just collecting data won't help you at all. So you need to understand, okay, are you collecting data to have some technical fix, or it is for the user experience that you're collecting data? And understanding and setting those goals helps you to come up with the best data collection method. You need to then, after you have the goals, you identify who is going to take part in your data testing or data collection. And you are going to decide also how many participants you're going to have. One of the things that I suggest my students as they go through the game development testing is at first, like in the remaining 2-3 weeks, we are going to get at least 3 to 5 participants per week. They're going to test your game. They're going to provide feedback, which is kind of a nice number. After you reach 3 to 5 people, you're going to get redundant information. So you can set that goal in a way, I'm going to recruit participants until I get redundant information, and then you can stop. But usually that the magic number for that is like between 3 to 5, you start getting redundant information. After you do that, you go back, make changes, and then you recruit 3 to 5 participants again. You run it, you see what type of data you're collecting, and based on that, you're going to kind of have that iterative process. You need to have a clear relationship with your participants. It needs to be clear and professional. Sometimes you need to have informed consent. And for your cases, you do not need to have informed consent. So, and I can talk more about it if anyone is interested. Triangulation is the way that you look at your data from different perspective. So you collect more than one type of data, for instance. It could be quantitative, qualitative data, and you combine the two to come up with a certain kind of objective, and then it kind of drives how you want to change your game. And then you're going to have pilot studies, which are small trials of the main study or the main game that you want to release at some point. So there are different ways that we can collect data, and we can have interviews, questionnaires or surveys, observations, documents, focus groups, oral histories, sensors. So for your games, for your data collections, one of the things that you're going to focus on a lot is going to be observations. You're going to allow users to play your games, and then you're going to observe how they are going to interact with your games, and then that is a very rich type of data that you can have. The other thing that you can have is not censor, but like your game can produce some data, like how long did it take them to get to the end point, or did all of the user got stuck in a certain point. So those are the data that are automatically collected. You just need to create and script it to have a log data to gather all of that information. You can always go back to it and process it. So observation and collecting data through the game is very important. And then documentation, you need to put those observation, the data that you're collecting in your game design document. So as you go through, record everything, document it, because at the end I want to see the testing. I want in your papers, I want to see that you collected data, you showed it to someone, someone played your game, and these are the findings. So when it comes to collecting the data, you need to think about how you want to record them. The data could be you writing on a piece of paper yourself. It could be the audio recording, video recording. It could be all sort of different thing. For you, some of it comes from in-game data that you collect, and each one has their own advantages, own disadvantages, and you need to understand, like, going back to the goal of your data collection, you decide which one is best for your game. When it comes to interviews, you can have different type of interviews. So, and but interview doesn't mean like you interview someone like a user that goes through your game. You need to have some background information about them. You technically the first few minutes you're going to interview that person. So interviews could be uninstructed, which are not directed by a script. They are very rich but not very replicable. The structured one are the one that I personally like. They are a script. So you have a script, and every, like, since you are working in groups, every single group member have the same script, and each one of you can run that same observation, same interview, and you all do it exactly the same. So when you go through the script, sometimes there are areas that will be unstructured. For instance, user does something very interesting, and you was like, let's see what happens. And that is why we have semi-structured one. So it's guided by the script, but any interesting issues that comes up, you explore it and understand, like, which one, like what happened for the player making certain decisions in your game. And then the last one is focus groups. Let's say you have three different people testing your games in a room, and then after they played the game, you have them to sit with you and talk about the game. And that is type of a group interview, and you get their feedback. So at some point we are going to see if we can like create either semi-structured or structured um, interviews, and that is mainly to creating that script, and all of your team members are going to go with that. All right, when it comes to questions for your interviews, you can have closed questions which have predetermined answers, for instance yes or no, or you have like a Likert scale type of questionnaires, or it could be open questions and they do not have a predetermined format. Closed questions are easier to analyze, however, they are not giving you much information. Also, avoid long questions. Questions that have can be split into multiple questions. So whenever you have and or, those are multiple questions that you are having. So those are compound sentences or compound questions. Avoid anything that is jargon or language that your interviewee might not understand. Make it clear. Put everything in lay terms. Do not try to have leading questions. You're not trying to convince them this is a good game. You just want to get their honest feedback. So do not lead with any type of assumptions. Unconscious biases, for instance, gender stereotype and things are that you want to avoid. When you are having an interview with your scripts, these are all the information that needs to go into it. The first part of it is the introduction. You need to introduce yourself, like tell your interviewees the goal of the interview, making sure you disclose every information that they need to know. If you want to record anything, you need to get their permission for that. If it requires a consent form, you need to have them to sign it. Or maybe they don't want to participate, they don't sign it, and that's the end of the interview. So that part kind of makes it kind of trying to make the user, the participants more comfortable with everything. And then you get to the warm up, which the first few questions are going to be so easy, non-threatening. Like for instance, do you play video games? It's a very easy question to answer. How long have you been playing video games? So you're starting with warm-up questions. It's not about your game. Those are general questions that everyone feels very comfortable answering. And then you get to the main body of the questions. And those are the questions that are specific to your game. And there's a logical order to them. And just keep in mind, the ordering could make a huge difference. Sometimes with certain orders, you're going to get to certain outcome. So depending on the goal of your interview, you need to come up with the order of the questions. And you might have different scripts that have a different ordering because your goal for different type of interviews might be different. And then at the end, you have a cool off period, which includes a few easy questions to diffuse the tension at the end. And then you thank the interviewee, signal the end, and you, if you're recording, you end the recording, and that's it. There are other type of formats. If it's not in person, you can conduct other formats such as virtual interviews, and the participants will be in their own environment to kind of go through the interview. When it comes to the interview process in general, in person or virtual, using props helps to run the interview. Anything like if you have an example, a scenario that you can go through and show and kind of use that as an example, it helps the people to kind of elaborate more on the thing that they were thinking. Or ask them if they're thinking about a picture or a different game that they experienced something, ask them to show it to you. When it comes to questionnaires, you can create them. Like one very nice feature that UNC Wilmington has is the Qualtrics is a kind of big platform that allows you to create questionnaires. And through UNC Wilmington, you have a free access. So take advantage of that. Play with it and create simple questions if you want to go through some of the general aspect of the game through that and collect the data. It creates an Excel sheet for you. It gives you some general like initial analysis if you want to. So so when you're designing your questionnaires, again, it can be similar to like when you're creating your script. The order of the questionnaire questions will impact the user experience. You might need different versions of that questionnaires for different populations or different goals that you have. And you need to provide clear instructions on how to complete the questionnaires because questionnaires are done remotely without you being there. So if you're not there, it should not be confusing to the people who are taking that questionnaires. Let's say there are sometimes a VR game, a research kind of application that comes out, and a researcher posted in Discord and say, "Can someone test my game for me?" So people who have head-mounted displays or specific type of head-mounted display volunteer to test it for that person. So as we go and test it, at the end they give us a questionnaire to go through and answer certain questions about the research aspect or functionality of the platform. So it needs to be very clear. If I get confused with the question, the person who have created that platform is not available to me to answer my questions. And so when you're creating your questionnaire, you need to be very mindful of that and create it that is super easy for people to go through without you being there. So for questionnaires, you can have yes, no kind of type of questions. You can have multiple options, multiple answer. You can have rating scales, and then you can also have open-ended responses. And to encourage a good response, we need to make sure the purpose of the study is clear. You know the goals of the study. You need to understand the goal of the interview or the questionnaire that you have. Sometimes it's very important to promise anonymity to make sure they are not scared of their name being released. Or sometimes when it comes to the game testing, people don't want to, if they make mistakes, they might feel dumb, and we don't want that to be reflected. And we want to show them that no one knows who tested this game, so that makes it kind of easier for them to kind of be honest. Make sure everything is designed well, and always have follow up with your participants so they understand how everything is going. And sometimes you share the result of the whole study with your participants. With observation, which is a big piece for your games, you're going to do lots of observation. So you're going to ask participants to play your games, and you're going to see how they are doing. If there's any problems that they are facing, any places that they're struggling, if like three different users or three different players go through your game and they're all stuck at the same place, that's a design issue. So observations are going to provide lots of data. You're going to have direct observation that you're going to watch your players to play the game, and then indirect observations, the things that you're tracking from users' activity within your games. Um, when it comes to observations, you need to have a clear plan because you're working on teams and different team members are going to conduct that observation separately from each other, or maybe you assign one person to go through that. I highly recommend to have different people in your team to have the testing and the observation separately from each other, because your friend circles could be different. The way that you kind of observe and notice different things might be different. So have different people to do that. And decide if you want to have passive observe, like observing, or active one. So with passive observers, you just watch them, you don't make any comments. And then with active observer, sometimes you kind of intervene and help and give them feedback. But you need to make note of every single intervention you make. If every participant is stuck in the same place, you need to make a note of that. You need to put it in your paper. And that is not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing. That's a great thing to have because that shows you tested and now you're going back, you're trying to fix it. Or if you don't have time to fix it, maybe that issue comes on the last week before testing or before the final kind of delivery, and you're just like, we noticed this one. This is how it could be fixed. We didn't have time to do it. And that's acceptable. That's totally fine. Um, the observation materials that could be collected as you go through it are sorry, you need to basically if there's any recording, you need to get permission and make sure they understand that you want to do the recording. If you want to collect any of their background information, so anything that is important for your interview, you need to be very clear about that, and you need to communicate that with your participant and also make a note of that. So when it comes to observations, again, we have direct observations and think aloud technique is very important when it comes to it. So if you have people testing your games, ask them to think out loud. Try to have less interventions at first, and then if they're stuck, help them, but again, make notes of them. And then we also have indirect observations, and you basically track users' activity, which you're going to use some of that in your observations too. So choosing and combining different techniques depends on the focus on the study, the goals that you have, what participants are involved. So imagine for your technical uh, kind of observations, you're going to use adult participants, and after you fix all of those technical issues, now you are going to test it with kids. And your interview is going to be completely different because you're involving with different groups. What type of techniques you're going to use, what resources are available to you, and the time available. All right, so that's kind of the data collection part of, and that's a general data collection when it comes to collecting any type of data for any type of design, um, product design. And then the next part of this, I'm going to go over the game testing specifically.